Oh, hey! Welcome to Induction Studios. I'm a videographer, and I'm wearing the same shirt as later in this video, even though this video was shot a few weeks ago. Don't worry, it's been washed. But I made a breakdown of DESERTUM, which was a little short that we did a few weeks ago, more like a few months ago at this point. I broke down the shots, the special effects, and the sound design and music of it. It's pretty cool to see how much work can go into something so short and so simple. That really makes it a unique piece of art, if you want to call the stuff I make art. But I made this because I launched a Patreon. You can see it in the link below as well as the end of the video. And I think I'm going to make behind the scenes and special effects breakdowns of my longer form videos a Patreon benefit. A Patreon is an easy way to support the creators you like online. I think my tiers are $1, $3, and $10 a month. But let me know in the comment section if you want to see more like this. Maybe I won't make it a Patreon benefit. I know one of the bigger benefits I have under Patreon is all of the music I end up releasing will be available to patrons for free. And I actually have 3 albums that are launching later this month, almost 30 songs that are going to go live on like Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, pretty much everywhere. And you'll hear more about that once, once it's launched. But patrons will get all of that music for free, and that includes soundtracks to stuff like DESERTUM, Void, The Life of a Spartan, and future projects. So because this video is like 19 minutes, I have everything laid out in chapters below. Timestamps are also here, and you can kind of go and watch the parts that interest you. But here's a challenge. I say the word surreal a lot in this video. Let me know how many times I say it, and you'll win something. We'll figure it out in the future. Enjoy the video though. The hardest part for me when it comes to production is writing. I'm not good at writing. I get random ideas. I'm like, ooh, I want to film this. But dialogue, not so much. Planning, not so much. So ironically, we went for a walk. It was super smoky and probably a bad idea, bad for our lungs to go for a walk. But we did so, and I brought all my camera equipment, and we went to an area that actually was right down the street that we went to a few years ago, and we were ironically planning this project that still has not completed. And I looked down at the lake and saw that it was barren. And I had this idea. Let's make a dream sequence. So the lake near my house was pretty much completely drained and almost like a desert. And I'm like, if we shoot this at a high enough angle, which is, when I first started looking at these shots, I'm like, wait, why does Trey look so short? It's weird. But it's because of the high angle shot that we used. So by looking at a different angle, it creates the perspective shift of like making the object look like it's shorter, you know? But in the context of this episode, it works because it's supposed to be surreal and third person, and I didn't want to have to do a bunch of special effects removing the horizon, so I just cut out the horizon from the shot by having this high angle. I also shot this video completely on the DJI Osmo Pocket, which I did a video series of. You can see that in the cards above and at the end of the video as well. If you're into video production and stuff, that was actually a pretty fun series. It's nice because it kind of gives you that gimbal effect. So quiet this up a little bit. This shot, I was actually walking backwards, and I had to reverse it because it flowed into the forward motion of the next shot where he's walking forward. When I looked out at the dry lake bed, I immediately thought, let's make this look like a desert. And I also really like Latin. Hans Zimmer used Latin names for all of the titles in the Dark Knight series, at least the first one. That's the only one I actually own the soundtrack from. DESERTUM doesn't just mean desert, but unfrequent places. That really spoke to me because a lot of times in dreams, they are unfrequent places. Our brains are capable of creating very interesting circumstances in our dreams. And that's what I want a lot of these dream sequences to be, is very surreal and allow for some really creative filmmaking. I also really want to capture the uneasiness of some dreams that seem perfectly fine in the moment because of how dreams are so third person. You're kind of like watching things play out. Even if you're in first person, it's more like you're living a memory. You're not aware that it's happening, and that's where the whole idea of lucidity comes in. When you're lucid in a dream, you realize you're dreaming, and that actually happens in DESERTUM. I don't know if you can catch it, but Trey's character is just kind of walking aimlessly. He doesn't really have any reason to. He's not really aware of his surrounding. He's just kind of walking. And I'm sorry for people who aren't Patriots fans. I couldn't get him to not wear his Patriot socks, so sorry, Landon. So the moment he becomes lucid is as soon as his feet stop hitting dry sand and hit this squishy mud next to this water, and he kind of looks around, and you can see as it goes from slow motion to regular speed, right here as he looks in the opposite direction, it's back at full speed. And this is where he kind of realizes, hey, where am I? I don't have any special effects activated yet. We'll talk about that in a second. But as soon as he looks around and realizes he's dreaming, or realizes something's up, he starts to panic. So because this is behind the scenes, I want to, of course, talk about some of the effects I use. But first, I got to keep this naughty little nugget from being a naughty little nugget. So as far as special effects goes, other than just slowing a lot of shots down, reversing a few shots, most of it was just kind of basic color correction and vignetting. What I did for this shot here is we have, I have an adjustment layer with a vignette and the color correction. So this top layer down here is an adjustment layer, of which I have attached the Lumetri color, which basically has the color correction. And I believe it just has the dark vignette, which is just very subtle, just darkening the edges around the screen. And then on the specific shots I decided to, which was honestly most of them, I also added this Gaussian blur. And then I actually masked it so that everything but Trey is blurry. I basically just animated this mask slightly where he turned, and that way everywhere around him, except for here, like I probably could have brought that in a little bit to blur out that tree, which I noticed in the full version, but oh well. And then because the sun was behind him, we also were able to take advantage of the natural lens flare and God rays coming around him, and that ended up looking really cool. Back on this shot here, this was actually really cool. Without any effects, it actually already looks really surreal. And that's because of the good old Cameron Peak fire, which is now the biggest fire in Colorado history and can be seen by driving less than a mile away from my house. It was actually blotting out the sun and caused everything to be very orange. My friend Connor mentioned in the comments, it looks like Book of Eli. And I noticed that too, and that wasn't with much color correction. That was just the insane orange color from the smoke that was causing it. And you know, once I added that little bit of color correction, which basically silhouetted Trey and emphasized that orangeness of the smoke. I mean, it blew out the sun a little bit, but that was kind of the goal, to make it look brighter. I did add in a basic lens flare, just a built-in one for Premiere. The shot that I was not planning to have any special effects in was this one right here. And without any effects, this is what it looks like. Because of the orange lighting, the water ended up looking really orange as well. And I was worried that people wouldn't be able to tell that there was actually water here. I ended up just finding this asset from Mixkit, which is basically just, they look like they're generated in like Blender or something, just a basic ocean horizon green screened. And I took that into here and I basically cut it out and masked it in so it was only showing up there. So there's the shot, there's it cut out and blended with where the water is, just to emphasize the moving water, because 2 shots from now you can see the water's moving but you couldn't hear. So once you add the color correction on top of that, you get this really kind of surreal dreamlike water, which of course when it's playing back at 1/8 resolution it looks weird. But it gives you that effect, and of course the main focus is this squishy mud that he steps in. So then the next shot that had kind of a decent amount of special effects, but still very simple effects, was this one here. So this was a lot of fun because, again, I wasn't really planning it. So there's 2 images that are both color corrected separately. With no color correction, there's a shot, and of course, the whole thing is flipped. So of course, Past Michael muted himself here, but here you can see the final effect that wasn't flipped, but we thought that flipping it looked more surreal, and you're seeing the two separate layers that we made to color correct the reflection to be a very different color than the sky. I really like this shot. It is just very interesting and very surreal. Now this is the most interesting special effects shot, and the one that's kind of driving a lot of the visual style of the series, and that's data moshing. Data moshing is something that can happen to a digital video when the iframes, or every few frames in like an MP4 and MOV digital video files, hold more information than the others that tell the encoder how the image is supposed to look. It's a way of removing a lot of the data from a video. That's why MP4s are a lot smaller than raw images from cameras, is because of the way they're encoded, and iframes are part of that. If you mess with something in these information frames, the iframes, you can get data moshing. And there's programs that can do it for you, and I actually used an app called Mosh It on Android, where you insert two files. So I took two shots here. I was rotating around Trey in this way of him turning and looking at the environment here. And then I took a similar shot. Now combined, they just kind of cut like, but I mean, you can kind of see like, it's a pretty good cut, but I mean, the location of his body doesn't quite work. Well, once you data mosh it, it's going to combine the data from these two frames and create this really cool glitchy effect. Just like when your video is corrupted or you get lower compression, it's combining these frames and it ends up getting a really cool looking transition where all of a sudden the new wooded environment is bleeding into the desert one. Bam! But other than that, the rest of it goes pretty normally, just again utilizing that really steady shots from the Osmo, and then something comes through the trees, wakes him up, and we get one more of these data moshed shots that I didn't end up putting all of it in. I just did a few frames as he's coming out of the dream. Like that one right there, that's a cursed image if I didn't say so myself. Hey Trey, you should make that your profile picture. That'd be great. Sound design. That's the last big part of this. I knew I had to have really strong sound design, so I did a lot of Foley work. Foley is all the sounds recorded after a video is shot. When you see a character set a mug down or rustling through clothes or something like that, very seldomly is that audio recorded on the set. Adding in sound effects on top of a really surreal experience like this just makes it so much better. And I started with a bed of sound effects from Hollywood Edge sound effects or something like that. I ended up getting these back when I was in school, but heavy wind gusts. Here's just some sound of wind blowing, right? But then the rest were sound effects I recorded. And to do that, I have these sandbags that are used for holding down light stands and stuff. I actually use them to hold down Aspen's chair here so little Steven doesn't knock it over and scare the poor little kitty. I basically took this and made footstep sound effects in the sand. And then I got a washcloth, which is gross smelling. And we got just squirted water everywhere. Gross. That's the squishy mud sound effect. And finally I went to my backyard and grabbed some leaves and sticks. I mean, this is self-explanatory. I got the sounds of, leaves underneath him crunching and kind of blowing around when he warps into this forest. And then the sticks, I want to throw this stuff away. So here is the sound effects of the forest scene, which is both some wind and then the effects of my leaf and stick crunching. That was me just repeating one frame of like the wind sound effect to get that glitchy transition. There's the wind. I have, I believe, the leaf sound effects. Then the stick crunching. I would like... I made some sound, slowed it, I sped it up but lowered the pitch, and I ended up with this sound. And then, you know, kind of made a stereotypical monstery gurgle. And then when you layer that all together, you get a pretty full soundscape. Then there's the music. I was planning on spending more time making a music bed for this, but I was rushed to finish it over the weekend, and I ended up with a very simple, but I think a pretty cool music bed. So I basically just have a few instruments here. I start with this kind of high-pitched atmospheric synth that just kind of comes in every now and then. And then further down the video, it starts to pick up more. But still, it's all just kind of like ringing in your ear kind of thing. And then the glass viper here ended up being kind of like the main instrument. But again, just very seldom sounds until he realizes that he's dreaming. This is when it kind of speeds up and gets that sound effect that happens when the title pops up. And again, when he gets transported to the other area, mix that stuff in with some plucky strings. Pretty basic horror sound bed. Followed of course by a recurring melody, which you'll see a lot. Just to end out the video. That was a lot of fun to make and really not that hard. It didn't have much planning. We just kind of figured it out as we went, and hopefully it'll be the start of a series where we just where we experiment with cool filmmaking techniques and tell a story that we have a lot of plans for. It's just not very structured yet, and I think by just kind of diving into it, starting by making short videos to start introducing these characters in this universe will be a good stepping stone for me as a filmmaker, because I'm not good at creating like a huge script, but as we experiment with different things, we can kind of write the story as we go and hopefully have something pretty cool. But yeah, hopefully you liked this video. If you did, make sure that you are subscribed to Induction Studios. So if you like the special effects and kind of like behind the scenes breakdown of this, make sure to hit that like button, let me know in the comments, and that way I'll know that this will be a good bonus for my Patreon supporters. But yeah, I hope you have a great day, a great night, a great life. Make sure to share DESERTUM with one of your friends to get the series trending, hopefully. I don't know. And stay safe.
I can't remember who I am. I hope you still recognize. I know I've changed. Things seem so perfect.